previous chapter, Rambam quoted Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. It says that Akino v'ataiva v'akovod mosis odom min olam. Envy, desire, and seeking honor takes a person out of this world. People, they forfeit their share in this world and the world to come due to these three levels of interest. Or they're touched by envy, they're envious. Due to envy, people do things and justify many things which are it borders on the unconscionable. Taiva, for the sake of desire, people are blinded and they cross lines they shouldn't cross. And for the sake of honor, we do things, we pursue honor, and we justify many things to give ourselves that level of recognition and acknowledgement. That's the Mishnah Pirkei Avos. So the third chapter begins, Shem Yomer Odom, Hova Kineva Taiva Kovod Chyotzim Dovero. Since envy, desire, and honor is something which is very negative, as we just said, Motzin Sodom and Olam, actually it undermines a person's value in this world or the world to come. Efrosh Mehen Bioser, I should have nothing to do with eating, shouldn't eat. Because you realize if you whet your appetite, ultimately you're putting yourself in the position, you become vulnerable that you can end up creating a desire which is uncontrollable. So if you make a fence, maybe you should literally eat something which is the equivalent of eating straw. It's edible, but literally don't eat. I'll go to the nth degree, to the extreme. Achlo yochal boser, who said, I will not eat meat. Come a vegetarian, since the nature of marriage is cohabitation, because procreation is a mitzvah, but you realize, once you whet that appetite and you allow yourself to be touched with the sexual desire, you never know where it goes. That's desire. Now, it's interesting. The Gemara tells us that the act of cohabitation cannot be done unless it's tinged, it's touched, you have a desire for the woman. Because without the desire, a person is not aroused, and if you're not aroused, one cannot do the act of penetration, which is cohabitation, which is procreation. But that's the nature of the reality. For instance, priests are celibate. Why priests celibate? Because they call that's original sin. But within the context of Torah, a Jew who does not procreate, because procreation, we're reflecting God's characteristic of creator. The closest thing to creation is procreation. From conception through gestation, and the child develops, that is the closest thing to ex nihilo. And therefore, a Jew has an obligation to reflect God's characteristics. That's one of the characteristics. But you realize you're playing with fire. Because once you go there, since it's impossible to do that act unless there's desire, nevertheless, the Torah says you must do it. That is the obligation. That's the first mitzvah in the Torah is be fruitful and multiply. That's procreation. And even non-Jew has that obligation to procreate. So maybe the person says, I'm celibate. I'm not going to get married. Yom Tov comes, there's a mitzvah to celebrate. Wine, and meat. But I don't want to go there because you never know how it may touch you. But you're doing the wrong thing. He won't sit in a home, in a residence which is pleasant. He's not going to wear clothing, attire which are pleasant, attractive. Who have sackcloth. You wear sackcloth and it lacerates your skin. Wool that's not fully processed. Also, you're always in a state of discomfort. Like you find the priests, the monks, The priests of idolatry, what do they wear? You ever see the monks' robes? It's made of sackcloth. It's coarse. But because again, they supposedly being the men of God, these monks, therefore they want nothing to do with physicality. And they're in a state of continuous discomfort, not to even consider crossing those lines. Maybe that's the right thing. It's the wrong thing to do. It's considered taking an evil path. You're not even permitted to even pursue this path, to become celibate, to deny yourself foods that you should have at certain times, and clothing, and not to distract yourself with pain. We'll see in a moment. Person takes this path in life, you consider a sinner. Now later, we have in these laws here of Deios, a Jew has an obligation to maintain his health. It's their obligation. You have to live healthily. Why? Because he says that the only way you could have a healthy mind is if you have a healthy body. You have a healthy body, you have a healthy mind. But if a person has pains and becomes semi-non-functional, that pain automatically becomes an infringement on the clarity of mind. You become preoccupied with your pains and with your health issues. Therefore, we have to maintain our health to our best ability. Person may have a genetic issue, and therefore he ultimately comes upon certain settings or certain situations, but he did his best. But if it's within your ability to be healthy and you fail, since it has a consequence, and the consequence manifests itself in the spiritual realm, because you lose focus, because, as we say, only a healthy body, you have a healthy mind. And due to those pains and these issues you have, you do not have that focus. You're held accountable for not having the focus, for not having that clarity. So therefore, to live a life of stoicism, I'm not going to procreate. First of all, you have an obligation. Well, I'll wear the attire, I'll wear sackcloth. So there's not even consideration. I'll be interested in pleasure. But being in a state of pain, you're not permitted to put yourself in a state of pain. That always wears something that, as we say in English, rubs you the wrong way. Right? It's coarse. But that coarseness is a lack of comfort. I'm not saying indulgence, but you should be in a neutral state of comfort to be able to have the focus. You live in a residence that it's illuminating, it's encouraging, it's uplifting. You live in a dark, dreary location, which it causes depression. It's not the place to be. You always have to be in this up mood, optimism, being able to accomplish. So to do anything which infringes on those positive feelings to allow you to succeed in the spiritual realm, you're doing the wrong thing. You don't ingratiate yourself. You don't indulge. Because indulgence or ingratiating yourself, that brings to not good things. We speak about addictions. You can become addicted to food. You can become addicted. You can have a sexual addiction. You can become addicted to money. That's the workaholic. You need a balance. So if you go the other way, also, you may not be addicted, but you need certain basic amenities. You have to live in a basic level of comfort. And if you deny yourself that in a degree, although you're not in the position of the person who's the glutton or the hedonist, because that leads to things much worse. But you won't be an accomplished person, because in that state of mind, emotional, distracted, you're not going to be able to succeed in the areas that you're meant to succeed. Hareza Nikrachote here is called a sinner. The Gemara tells us, cites a pasuk, a verse, that a person who fasts We're talking about a self-imposed fast. You're considered a sinner. The fast which were legislated by the rabbis based on verses and prophets, we have no choice, we have to fast. It's like a doctor tells you, before you take a certain blood test, you have to fast. You're not permitted to eat anything. So there's certain days of the year that we have to commemorate certain things, so we're obligated to fast. But if a person assumes a self-imposed fast, now why are you fasting? The Torah doesn't obligate you to fast, and rabbinically, so why? Because it's a known fact that a person is not as energetic. You don't have the energy level when you fast as when you don't fast. So by having that lower level of energy, you're not able to fulfill the mitzvahs with that same vigor as you would if you would eat. So as a result of you toning down and minimizing and depleting your energy level, how does it manifest itself? The consequence is you're serving God to a lesser degree. Therefore, a person who fasts, self-imposed fast, is considered a sinner. Rambam uses the same words. A person who follows this path, he goes to the nth degree, denies himself meat and wine. Even on Yom Tov, where there's a mitzvah, you should rejoice on the holiday, which means meat and wine. Procreation, which Torah says you must procreate. And you must dress in a way where you're not infringing on yourself. Not to be indulgent in attire. The Torah says that a person who fasts, self-imposed fast, if it does not affect him as much as an iota, because health-wise, he doesn't have to eat every day, and he could fast once in a while. Fasting is not considered, he's not considered a sinner. But a person who needs the food to give him that energy level, and if not, he's low energy, and that manifests itself in less engrossment, not as involved, then you're a sinner. So it really depends on the person. Shrei Omer ben Nazir, we find the Nazarite. A Jew is permitted to drink wine. A person enters into a state of Nazaritehood. For 30 days, is not permitted to drink wine or any grape or grape derivative, and he's not permitted to cut his hair for 30 days. If the Torah says you're permitted, why are you imposing these restrictions upon yourself? It's not necessary. As he says, he needs atonement because he sinned ala nefesh. What does this mean? The only thing he denied himself was wine. So kaporo, he needs atonement for denying himself something that's permitted. We call dover, person who denies himself from other areas, not only wine, things that he's permitted to partake of. There's no question. He has liability. He has culpability. What do you have to deny yourself? The Torah doesn't deny you. Why should you deny? We're not saying you should become a drunkard. You should become a glutton. We're not saying that. But why create a prohibition? You should only deny yourself things that by being involved that area, it would somehow be an infringement of Torah. It will deny you your Torah opportunity. This is very interesting. The other day I was sitting next to someone. He's a grandson of mine. I said to him, "What are you thinking?" Because I saw his mind was elsewhere. He says, "I just tuned out. I wasn't thinking about anything." Tuned out. People, even though they don't speak, their minds are occupied with something. What is it occupied with? So it's occupied with something of value, of course. You should think about it. But I'll give you an example. People have different types of minds. And some people are more easily distracted, some are less easily distracted. Let's say you have a novel and you want to relax. There's nothing wrong. Just as it's a mitzvah to study Torah, there's a mitzvah to relax and sleep, to maintain your health, to be able to get back, to be energized, to get back and apply that ability to study and do the mitzvahs. So let's say you want to read a novel to just relax, and you'll enjoy the novel. I would talk about it's a kosher novel. It's not interspersed with material which a Jew should not read, like pornographic information. Is it permitted to read? The answer is it's permitted. But let's say you have a type of mind, you read a novel and you enjoy it. And after you finish taking your break of relaxation, your mind is occupied with what you read. And now when you go study Torah, what's going to happen? You're going to have a distraction because of what you read during your moment of relaxation. It carries into the area of Torah study. And now your mind cannot fully focus on Torah study because you already are thinking about the information that you had read when you relaxed. It's a problem. You're permitted to relax, you're permitted to read the book. The material is kosher material. But if that material will touch you in a way which it's going to consume you and distract you, that's not the information you should read when you relax, because if that's the case, it's going to cause infringement on your Torah study. So what does he say? What are you permitted to deny yourself? You should only stay away from something which the Torah denies you. But something which Torah doesn't deny you, permitted things, there's no reason you shouldn't stay away. There's no reason. It's a sin. I'll give you an example. The Rambam writes in the Guide for the Perplexed. In Hebrew, it's known as Mor Nevuchim. The Rambam was written in Arabic. And he wrote it because many Jews in his time, they weren't learned. And he wanted to introduce the Torah to them, and they should see the practical value of observing the mitzvahs on a practical level. He spoke as a doctor, he spoke as a psychologist, he spoke as a therapist, he spoke as a hygienist, he spoke as a nutritionist, he spoke at every level to show that the mitzvahs themselves, besides only having spiritual value, you have practical value in the material realm. You have it. So he writes over there, the Torah, when it says regarding dietary laws. In Hebrew, a non-kosher species is called min tomei, a contaminated species, spiritually contaminated. Unless it has split hooves and chose its cud, it's classified as a non-kosher species, which in Torah refers to as a species which is tamei. Tamei means spiritually contaminated. And then the Torah says, and if you eat non-kosher species, this is very important, you'll become contaminated to it through them. However, if the spelling in the nitmesem, you'll become contaminated. The aleph of nitmesem is deleted. Why? So the Talmud says, because it's community telling you that violating dietary laws is different than violating any other area of the Torah. That when you eat food which does not conform with dietary laws, and you eat it and you ingest it, it becomes part of your being, it shuts down your spiritual systems. Person violates the Shabbos, doesn't shut down the spiritual systems. You wear shatnez, one doesn't put on tefillin. But eating non-kosher, not abiding by dietary laws, Torah reveals us through that word nesimum, it will become v'nitamtem, you'll be shut down. So not only So he's saying, you're only permitted to deny yourself things which the Torah denies you. Which is what? Which is not kosher food. Because that is directly in contradiction to what your spirituality is. It will shut you down. But something which doesn't shut you down. And if you eat a modicum of it, it's fine. But if you indulge in it, it's a problem. So here, wine, which is permitted. The Torah prohibits it to the Nazir. What did you have to become a Nazir? What did you have to become a Nazirite? There's no reason for it. Something's not kosher, it's not kosher. It's a detriment to your being. But if you wouldn't be a Nazir, you're permitted. So why did you have to deny yourself something that's permitted? And yet the Torah says, if you did, he needs atonement. Because you denied yourself something which the Torah permits. That's the concept. One should not prohibit, create prohibitions through vows and oaths, areas which are permitted to you. It's wrong. The Chum say what the Torah is saying, it's not enough what the Torah prohibits for you. You have to add to the prohibitions. There's no reason. If God didn't want you to partake of it, he would have said so. Elu shemisanin tomid. People that are always in a state of fasting, always fasting. It's not a good thing. Because when you state of fast, that means you're not eating. And since God created the human being to eat, and the Jew has enough to eat in terms of conforming with dietary laws, why are you denying yourself? There's a story many years ago, I mentioned on the Zoom. This person came from St. Louis, Missouri, and he became a Baal Tshuva, and he was in medical school. And we had him over one Shabbos, and I said to him, what are you doing now? He says, my father would really like I should take the exams to be certified as a doctor, but all these years I haven't studied. It was my Baal Tshuva. I want to become a Talmid Chacham. Therefore, I don't have time to study for the exams to be certified as a doctor. So I said to him, but you put all these years into medical school, at least bring it to fruition and get yourself the certificate, which will allow you to practice medicine. So he says, something. He says, but I want to be a Talmid Chacham. So I said, why don't you go ask Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, Zech Tzak Levrocha, who was one of the leading Torah sages of the generation, and consult with him. And whatever he tells you, you should follow him. Fast forward a few months later, I said, did you consult Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, who's the leading Torah sage of the world then? He says, yes. I said, what are you doing? He says, I'm studying. But you just finished telling me Rabbi Kamenetsky, Zech Tzak Levrocha, is the ultimate opinion when it comes to spirituality. He says to me, he says, yes, but I want to be Talmid Chacham. But if the expert in spirituality, he's one of the leading Torah sages. Then he was in his 90s already. And he's advising you, your priority is first take the exams, get yourself certified, and then you study. You're reverting the order. So that's something you want. Doesn't mean to say it's correct. Lo dayach ma she'osher Torah el ta'oser alecha dvarmo ta'acherim. Therefore, the Nazir, when he prohibits wine on himself, he needs kapara. He needs atonement. Torah says wine's permitted, grapes are permitted, grape derivatives are permitted. All that's permitted. Why are you going and creating your own so-called like your own religion? Okay. We'll stop here. The questions, and then 1:00 we have the Parsha class. Okay. Any comments?